Hello, I'm Gretchen Lida. I'm the host here on Horse Network for HN Reads, the show where we talk about books and horses and books about horses, and we always have authors on to discuss those things. This month we are doing a romance month, and we have a fantastic author and a fantastic editor to join us. We have Jodi Thomas, who is a New York Times best-selling author. She is also a fifth generation Texan and comes from a ranching family. So we're excited to talk about cowboys with her. And then we have the editor, the longtime editor of Janet Daly, who's one of the romance novel legends of the genre, to come and talk about. And her name is Alicia Condon. Welcome on, Jodi and Alicia.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here. To start us off, I wanted each of you to describe the two books that we have a little bit and to maybe talk a little bit about, especially you, Alicia, talk a little bit about, I'll hold it up here. I have Santa's Sweetheart, which takes place in a very special Texas town. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about this book for me first. And then after that, I'll have you do yours, Jodi.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about Santa's Sweetheart. It takes place in a little fictional town in Texas called Branding Iron. And we have had a number of Christmas stories set in Branding Iron. It's a wonderful little town that readers love to visit again and again with each new book in the series. It's a little place where there always seems to be snow at Christmas time, and where when people hop in their pickup trucks to go into town, there's always Christmas music playing. And if somebody goes into a kitchen, it's usually to whip up a batch of Christmas cookies or make some hot chocolate to have by the fire. This is very much a cowboy town, as you can tell from the name of the town, Branding Iron. And horses are very much a part of the way of life there, because many of the people are ranchers. Some of them are raising horses, and many of them are using horses in their cattle business. So in this particular story, it's about the town sheriff, Sam. And he has a 6-year-old daughter, Maggie, who pretty much runs away with the whole story. She is so spunky and adorable. Sam and Maggie are looking at the coming holidays as kind of a sad time because her mom passed away the year before. Is a fighter. She is just so charming, and she decides what her dad needs for Christmas is a girlfriend. So she sets out to find him a sweetheart. And the person that she hits on is her first grade teacher, Grace. Grace is some from her past. So the two characters who are really looking for love and looking for that warmth of the holidays and a happy relationship. And Maggie is going to be sure, no matter what happens, that she gets these two favorite people in her life together for Christmas.
Oh, so cute. And Jodi, the book that you brought for us, The Cowboy Who Saved Christmas.
Yes, I started with a very broken guy. He doesn't have any family left, and he knows how to gamble. So that's how he makes enough money to survive. And then he takes on jobs, and he gets it to Jefferson, Texas, which is right on the border of Louisiana, and there's a job for a hauling job, and he thinks, well, that'll be good. I'll take that. And he's got to go all the way from Jefferson to past Dallas, and this is early times, and so he takes the job, and he finds out the next morning it's 5 little girls, and they're all dressed up. And I got a review that said your girls took over the story. Well, that was the purpose for them to take over this. But so he looks at them. He's never been around children or little girls, and he doesn't know anything. One of them can't keep her shoes on, and one of them bosses the others around, and one of them wants to be a boy, so she doesn't dress up and everything. And um, he, they start the journey, and he teaches them how to be cowgirls, and he also teaches them about life. And in the 3 weeks of journeying through, they run into all kinds of trouble, and he can't remember their names, and so he calls them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they end up saving his life. And it was the funniest story I think I've ever written. There was just so much humor in it because this man just didn't understand little girls. And I had a lot of fun writing it. It was all writers tell you this. Some books come hard, some easy. This one flew. I was just couldn't wait to get up and write the next chapter. And I had fun with it.
This leads perfectly into my next question. Little girls play a really prominent role in both of these particular stories. Jodi, I'll have you go first. What do you think it is about the magic of little girls and Christmas?
I think children and Christmas is the magic. And I think when at Christmas time, particularly, we like to read stories that warm our heart, and little girls do that. And I have 3 granddaughters, and they've had me laughing since they were born. So
Alicia, what do you think?
I think that children are really able to connect with the freshness and the wonder of Christmas. They're not at all jaded, and they still believe in Santa. They still believe, little ones. They still believe in magic and that dreams can come true. And that's what we all want to reconnect with is that fresh sense of wonder at Christmas time. So I think that certainly little Maggie and the Sweetheart does that. She is such a charming character. And what's fun about the Christmas Tree Ranch series is that we get to see Maggie all grown up in other books. She becomes the mayor of Branding Iron later in life. And when you read this story about her childhood, you can see why, because she...
Yeah, Maggie really does have this sense of like, this is exactly what's going to happen, and this is what my life is. This is what I expect my life to look at, which I really, really like.
Yeah.
So my next question is that both...
She's just a getter. Such a fun...
both Janet and Jodi had a lot of experiences with horses. Alicia, I'll have you go first. Can you describe some of Janet's experiences with horses? Jodi, will...
Yes.
Oh, me? Okay. I grew up, my uncle was the president of a little rodeo association. And I always said I rode in the rodeo, but what I rode in was the grand entry where they just go around. And then I was the little girl that got to give out the buckles when the winners were coming. And a lot of them, most of the winners were related to me practically. But it was always a special week when we had that, because you lived on a horse. It was so much fun. We every day we went through the Dairy Queen and got ice cream, one for us and one for the horse.
Oh, that's so cute. You also mentioned in your bio, which I wanted to talk about this individually, is that you mentioned that you sometimes still have a limp. Can you tell me about that?
I do. Once in a while, when I'm tired, people say, "Are you limping?" And when I was 15, I was riding full out, and I I got thrown, and it was my fault. And um, I got up, and my uncle was waiting for me, and he pulled up, and I didn't say a word. And we drove 2 hours all the way home. I didn't say a word. And of course, as soon as I got home, my mother took me to the hospital. But
Oh yeah.
uh, but I was afraid I wouldn't get to come back to the rodeo with him if I told him I was hurt. So it,
Oh
I still limp a little bit, but especially when I'm tired. But I don't blame the horse.
yeah.
It was
Oh, so here's the fun question. Tell me about the horse that threw you.
his name was Midnight, and in several of my books, I named the horse Midnight. And he was a great horse, but he liked to, like, if you had a brand on the back of your jeans, he liked to bite it, see if he could bite it off. That hurt a little bit, but he was a great horse. My aunt used to say, if my uncle had to choose between Midnight and her, Midnight would win.
Oh no.
So he loved that horse, and he always let me have it for the rodeo.
Alicia, we'll try this again. And there's just a little bit of a audio issue. If it comes up, give me a holler. You're welcome to hop back on and off. But we'll try this one. Can you tell us about Janet Daly's Arabians?
Yes. So Janet bought 2 Arabian mares. One of them turned out to be pregnant, and she loved Arabians. She had done a lot of research on Arabians for a book that she was called Eris. And when the foal was born, she wound up naming it Eris. And she had those 3 Arabians for a long time, loved to ride them. And her husband also owned quarter horses, and she had a buggy, and they trained the quarter horses to pull the buggy times. So that was another aspect of their horseback riding experiences.
Fabulous. I love that the idea of naming a foal after a character that you create in a book is really fun. So the next question that I have kind of ties into this. What is it like to write horses as characters, or what does that kind of look like on the page? Jodi, I'll have you do this one first.
I think people that are never around horses just think they're all alike, and they're not. They have personalities, and some of them don't like you, and and some do. But it's interesting being around cowboys, how different one cowboy will treat a horse. Some of them uh, see them as almost a partner, and others just see them as something to use. Yeah. So it's interesting. I like the personalities.
Is there a horse with a good personality in a book that you like can think of off the top of your head that you really like?
Let's so many. Uh, Whenever I was writing historicals, I always the my hero always had a special horse, and I loved writing historicals. And I think I just wrote so many. I wrote 22, and I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't even write a contemporary. So I switched. Yeah.
Fabulous. Yeah, I mean, if the horse gives you the juice, the horse gives you the juice, right? Alicia, I know that Janet Daly has a new book out called Calder Brand that is also talking about horses. Can you talk a little bit about that book?
Yes. So Calder Brand is about young Joe Dollarhide. Uh, lived the late 19th century in Hannah. and he's determined to make a name for himself out in this new territory. And the way he does it is by starting up a horse breeding, and he had trained from a man who had Kiowa ancestry. And this old man teaches Joe a different way from the usual, sort of harsh horse breaking methods, more intuitive, kinder way, in which the trainer gains the horse's trust. And I'm not that familiar with horse training myself, but I gather that that's probably a more modern approach to the process. So Joe is able to do that. In the Calder books in general, Janet always has a lot of drama, and in one of the earlier books, actually several of the earlier books, there was this one horse that the hero rides, and one of the villains ultimately kills that horse, and that brings the whole story to a very dramatic kind of head. So horses are always an integral part of Janet's stories.
Yeah, so the horses themselves are super, super important in Janet's writing. I'm also wondering, and I'll have Jodi, you start us off with this one. Why do you think it is that horses end up in romance writing so often?
I think I think there's a lot of romance about ranching, and ranchers have horses, and I think people they just see them. They see them as beautiful animals that they are. You know, I even think the Mustangs are beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just there's something unique about watching a horse run, when especially when some of their feet are off the ground and they're still going full. It's fun to watch them.
Alicia, why do you think horses end up in romance writing so often?
I think that people have a unique relationship with horses and with dogs. I mean, those are the two animals that people really seem to connect with. And romances are all about emotions and exploring different aspects of our emotions. And I think our connection with animals is very key to all of them. And people fall in love with horses. So what better place for them than in a love story?
Yeah, there's something about often animals, especially horses and dogs, that appear on the page. The other question, so this is a little bit different. What do you think about, and I will have Alicia do this one first. Why are cowboys and Christmas always seem to often end up together?
And by the way, I have to add, I'm sorry I left cats out of that. I didn't mean to offend any cat lovers out there. Cowboys and Christmas, it's a natural connection because there's something about the cowboy mystique, the rugged individual who kind of did alone. But Christmas time is the one time when you don't want to be going it alone. You want the love and the family, and so put that rugged individualistic character into a situation where he's going to open up, he's going to experience the warmth and joy of family and of connection with other people. That's a beautiful combination, and I think that we never get tired of it.
So it sounds a lot like there's this the connection between the cowboy, who is kind of the loner, and then Christmas itself, which is this magical time of year that is really deeply rooted in connection. Sticking those two things together often creates kind of an interesting dissonance. So Jodi, I'm going to ask you this question again, and I am also from the West. I am from Colorado. I have hung out with real cowboys. And I often like look at it, and I know cowboys, so in some ways they're not as romantic for me as they once were because I know them up close.
Right.
And I mean they still are. They're still lovely and hardworking and handsome. But you also know them individually. Some of you probably sound like you have even family members that are cowboys. Why do you think cowboys and Christmas go in romance?
Well, I think I I think you're right. When you know cowboys, they're not quite what they sometimes are in the movies, I guess. But um, I was out watching a roundup at the Stanford Ranch about, I guess it's been about 2 years ago, and I was out with the owner and of thousands of acres of land, and they were moving cattle, and we were up above looking down, watching them move through the valley. And I said, "What does it feel like? What does it feel like to own this? You know, this much?" And he said, "I don't own it. I'm the caretaker." And I think that's kind of how they look at it. They don't, and his cowboys wouldn't talk to me first couple of times I went out there, and they just kind of stayed away from me. And then I did a little thing talking about walking the land. Whenever you write a book, you need to walk the land. You need to feel it, and I use pictures of them herding cattle, and then they all thought they were movie stars, and now they talk to me and tell me every story they can think of. So it's fun.
A little bit of fame gets you in, gets you someplace, eh?
So if you ever want to watch Walking the Land, Jodi Thomas, you'll see the cowboys that are actually working.
Oh, that's fun. So, the other question that I have is okay, we have to do this one now because it kind of feeds in. What's the strangest thing that happened to you at an autograph party?
A couple of years ago, I was uh, autographing at Barnes and Noble, and my friends were around. So I probably had 6 or 7 people. The autographing was over, and they had a great display of 20 or 30 of my different books. And this cowboy walked up, and he pushed his hat back, and he said, "You got a lot of Jodi Thomas books here." My friend kind of leaned over and said, "Do you read Jodi Thomas?" And he said, "I've been sleeping with Jodi Thomas for 2 weeks." I looked at him, and nobody said a word. All my friends just stood there, and offered my hand, and I said, "I am Jodi Thomas." And he's he took his hat off, and you could see the red go up his face. And he said, "My, my sister gave me 3 of your books, and I've been reading them for 2 weeks."
Oh, that's so cute.
I said, "Well, that's okay. I knew you weren't sleeping with me." But that was the funniest thing that ever happened.
Oh my goodness.
Crazy things.
And I'm sure the poor guy did not even sort of think about like that what he was saying.
Yeah, yeah. But I've had people come up to me at an autographing and tell me that I'm not Jodi Thomas, that they saw me somewhere, and I'm not that person. And
What?
Jodi Thomas is walking around.
Oh, that's great. The other thing I also wanted to do is if any of the audience members have questions for our fantastic guests, please put them in the comment section. We would love to answer them. We love our audience and their questions, and they're often good questions. Okay, so I have to know this because it's killing me as the Colorado girl. Alicia and Jodi. Alicia, you'll start this one out. Why are there Christmas books in Texas? Why is Christmas in Texas such a thing?
Oh, well, Janet Daly is known for her Texas books and her Western set books, but I think in general, uh, readers in Texas, romance readers in Texas, are huge, always have been. They've been huge supporters of the romance genre. And so I think people like to repay that love by setting books in Texas. Christmas and otherwise.
Alicia, we're having a little bit of a trouble with your playback. So if you could log in and log out really quick and pop back in while Jodi answers this question, that'd be great so we can hear you super clearly. If that's all right, Alicia. Fabulous. All right, Jodi, tell us, Texas and Christmas.
I think, well, since all my Christmases have been in Texas, I think part of it is, and it's probably in the same in every state, but you go home for Christmas. And a lot of times the home you go to is the grandparents' home or your parents' homes, and it's ranches and farms. And I think that lends itself. It's you've got the whole family there, but there's just a little town to go to. So you're not doing exciting things like you would in New York or anything. You're just being with your family. And I think that's it. I think Christmas is when everybody comes home.
Do you think that the country and the world in many ways is getting more and more urban? I was wondering if do you think that this idea that um, Christmas will continue to be, or in the holidays in general, people will kind of be this country set thing, over the river and through the woods kind of idea, will continue to be a thing?
I don't know. That'll be interesting. I think so, because I think we like to think of it, even though we don't go home to a ranch anymore. We think of that. I remember very clearly as a kid going home Thanksgiving and Christmas to my grandparents' house, and all my uncles would be sitting out telling stories on the porch, and all my aunts would be in the kitchen telling stories. So I spent my whole childhood listening to their stories.
Oh
And,
yeah.
uh, and I think, I don't know about other places. I don't know if Denver's like this, but a lot of people in Texas talk in stories. And I'm not sure they're all true, but that's okay. But it makes it interesting. And I find myself following people around that talk in stories.
Tell me, when is the time that you followed people around?
Well, at girl, the Cowgirl Hall of Fame, I was there one day, and this old man was walking around, and he was explaining stuff, and everything he explained, he told a story about when he got this or whenever somebody got hurt on it or something, and finally he had several people with him, and he looked at me because I wasn't part of the group, and he said. Um, do you have some questions? And so I started asking him questions as fast as I could. And he finally said, Girl, I've been further looking for eggs than you've probably been in your whole life. I travel all the time, but he thought I was the dumbest person ever. But he knew about things that were in this museum that I wasn't familiar with.
Oh, that's fabulous. It looks like we have Alicia back. Alicia, welcome back. Thank you so much. Can you hear us all right? Oh, maybe. Also, don't worry. This happens sometimes. The internet is often a fickle beast.
Give it a shot.
Nope. Alicia, while we see if it works, why don't we take a look at that? We have a reader question. All right. It says, love your books, ladies. How about writing books that take place in Montana, Wyoming, and Nevada? Alicia, why don't we see if your audio's working? I believe in you. Why don't you take this one away first?
Yes. Okay, great. So all of Janet Daly's Calder brand books are set in Montana, in on ranches in Montana. So that has been done, and you'll love those stories. Montana is, the setting is so beautiful and really brought to life in the books. And there's a lot of history of the South of the West too. So that's a lot of fun.
Also, there we have a Montana book. So we're looking at Wyoming and Nevada.
Last month, I took a train ride from Denver to Moab. And I saw parts of the country I'd never seen because you can't see it from a highway. You have to take the train. And I think I'm going to be setting some, at least part of books in that beautiful, beautiful country to cross through the Rockies and the Black Hills. It was just gorgeous.
One of the questions that I was thinking about while reading your books and having a questions has westerns and the romance that takes place in the West with cowboys in it changed since you started writing and since Janet started writing, Alicia? Alicia, I'll have you do this one first.
I'm sorry, I had trouble hearing the question.
Oh, you're so fine. Have romance novels that take place in the West or include cowboys changed since Janet started writing?
They definitely have. Romance novels in general have changed a huge amount since Janet started writing. Her were some very first that were set in the United States way back in the early 90s and 80s even. So I think that people have much more modern attitudes toward falling in love, toward courtship, and towards women's roles in the world and in romance. So a lot of Janet's books, for example, she has a new series out right now that is about sisters. It's called the Champions series, and it's about these three women who are operating a bull breeding program on their ranch. So this is traditionally male area of occupation, but in these books, she has women getting into it, competing, and being very successful. So that's, I think, a big change from the old days.
Oh yeah, some girls kicking butt in romance books is always great, and it's nice. That's a cool change. Jodi, what do you think?
I think it's changed. It was more the woman's role and the man's role, which was never true in the West, but people saw it that way. They saw the woman as being like not armed whenever she's out in the and no, if she comes, she probably, if she's riding out on her own, even in the 1800s, she's armed, and just in case she runs into bear or something. And she's going to be armed. But I think the contemporary westerns are great now because they've taken away that the role of and they're sometimes swapping roles. They change roles.
Say that last part one more time.
Sometimes they change roles, and she may be the wild one, and he may be okay, and I think that's funny, and but I think a lot's changed. I mean, Texans are still crazy. I always think that.
Oh, okay. Tell me why are Texans crazy?
I don't know, just what they think is funny sometimes on a ranch may not be as funny as everybody else thinks it is, and it's there's just I think Westerners have a great sense of humor, and people don't see that because they're kind of quiet.
Yeah, I can see that. That's been my experience as well. Often it's a little dark, Like
Yeah.
often comic humor is just a teeny bit dark, but it's often really funny. And often they'll do things like completely make sure that you're safe and save you, but then they'll tease you about it the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So this is for both of you. Alicia, I'll have you start us off. What is a piece of advice you would give to a budding romance writer?
Well, they always say write what you know, and I think it's true no matter what genre you're writing in. And know your market, know your reader, and be first a reader, first and foremost, and then write the kind of book that you want to read. I'm not a writer myself, but that's what all the writers who I work with say is they mostly got started because they loved reading romance books and they wanted to read something different that wasn't out there, and so they wrote themselves.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think, Alicia, too, that your advice is super, super, super important as an editorial director and an editor. And that's really good advice. That is advice I often give as well when people ask me, what about writing? And I'm like, well, never trust a writer who doesn't read, is what I always tell them. So I think that's great. Jodi, how about you?
Well, when I started, I'd read romance for a long time. And I went to a used bookstore and I collected uh, several books from each well known, and I dissected those books. And it really helped me to look at the structure of a romance. But in truth, I'm writing for myself. There's some nights that I stay up till 2 or 3 o'clock because I want to see what happens. I really don't know, and I'm writing, and I love that. But a lot of people, maybe uh, at least would know this, but I think maybe 1 in 100 that says they want to write actually writes a book, and I think the hardest thing is writing was actually writing. And um, over my desk at home is a writer writes. You got to write,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's good or whether it's spelled right or anything. You got to write.
Yeah, a really wise writer I know once said to me that no time spent in front of the page is wasted, even if it's something that no one will ever see, because the practice of sitting in that chair and writing things down is super, super essential and very challenging. Like no one tells you how hard it is and how solitary it is, which is really important to remember.
It's a hard life, but
Say it again, Alicia.
I think that writing is really hard, but every writer that I know is compelled to write. And just as you said, whether their material sells or their book doesn't sell, they're writing it for themselves, just what Jodi said. And they write no matter what. There really is a compulsion, a good one.
Yeah, I think that that's very similar. That both writing and horse riding are have that. You do them because it is the thing you must do. Would you say that's true?
Yes. Oh.
So I think I have one more question. And audience, if you have any other questions for us, please let us know. I will start out with this one with Alicia. What is the next Janet Daly book coming out? And Jodi, what are you working on next? So Alicia, you'll go first.
Sure. So I'd like to talk about the next new Americana book that's going to be coming out. It's called Hope Creek. And Janet Daly, years ago, wrote a book in every single one of the United States. She and her husband were in a camper and they traveled all over the country and spent time in every state. And while they were there, it would be a book. And now we have decided to revisit this idea and once again write a new in every state of the United States. So Hope Creek takes place in South Carolina, on a little island, and it's about oyster fishing and two sisters who started out life as close as they could be, but drift apart because of problems in their family. One sister goes off and leaves this little island behind while the other stays home and tries to keep her family together. And when their mother commits suicide, the sister who left comes back home again, and there is a really, really touching story about how these two sisters deal with each other now after this time has passed. And wouldn't you know it, they're both attracted to the same man. So there's this very interesting relationship that develops. And of course, there's a happy ending. So it all is resolved. I won't give any more spoilers than that, but it's a wonderful book. It just feels like a trip to the beach. There's oyster roasts and fishing trips and time out on the creek under the stars. It's like a vacation in itself to read it.
It sounds like a fantastic beach read. Like it's got the prodigal son, I guess prodigal sister in this case, and the love triangle and the atmosphericness of taking place up in South Carolina. That's always a place I've always wanted to visit, is those islands on that part of the country. And Jodi, what are you working on next?
I just started a new series 2 weeks ago, actually. It's going to be in Honey Creek, and it's opens with a man dying, and he lists his 4 sons, and he never had anything to do with his 4 sons. And each book will be about family. A lifetime ago, I was a family counselor, and I've always wanted to write a book about, no matter how you're raised, there are strengths from that experience and their weaknesses. And I wanted these 4 men to come together and realize that and help each other in this little town. And I think I'm just starting it, so I don't know where it's going. I've always been fascinated with people that outline a book and know where they're going. I've written 56 books, and to tell you the truth, I'm always afraid that they're going to end on page 100 because I don't know where they're going, but somehow they make it, they get through. But I think in the back of my mind, I know what I want to say. I know what I want people to feel. And so I feel that. I know that's coming. But this is going to be a little bit different for me because all of these stories are independent, but they will also blend. And I think it's going to be fun.
It sounds like it's fun. It also sounds like it's super ambitious, like to get those to go together.
I
Especially
know.
like there's no outline. Like that's amazing. I'm a nonfiction writer, so I don't know what the like no plot thing looks like, and it sounds challenging.
Well, if I get bored, either bullets fly or something happens, because it has to happen. But I don't know. It's almost like the characters are telling me the story.
It looks like we have one more reader question. Again, if you have any questions for us, we'd love to hear them. Who are the other authors that write Western romance books that you can think of?
Linda Brody always writes. She's written quite a few, and she's from Texas. And there's a lot of them, but a lot of people do. Yeah, one bad thing about being a writer, I guess, tough thing. I read all 50 of Janet Daly's states, and before I was writing, I was reading probably three books a week, and now when you're writing and you're on deadline and you're pushing it, you're lucky to get to read 10 a month. Yeah. And so I read very, very little, but I love going to the bookstore and looking at their plots and say, I got to read this. I got to read this. So I collect a lot of books. Someday I'm going to stop writing and just read the 500 books I've got in the garage.
Oh yeah, the to be read pile just
Yes.
continues to grow. I know that's mine too. It's like, oh boy. Alicia, do you have any other Western romance authors to suggest for our viewer?
Yes, absolutely. Lindsay Mckenna springs to mind. She has written a lot of fabulous romances set in the West, set on ranches. And another wonderful author is Kat Martin, who is writing a series right now, and her first book will be out in just a month or two in this series, and it's set in Colorado, and that's called The Last Good.
These are all really, really good suggestions. I love it. Well, I guess I'll leave one last question. What is a book that you have read in the last 6 months that you can't stop thinking about? And extra points if it's horsey.
Oh, who goes first?
Ooh.
Do you have one? Whoever has one should go first.
Let her go first. I have to think. I think
You're both thinking so hard.
I'm trying to think of one that's horsey.
If it's not horsey, that's also fine.
Oh, okay. So one that I read that just really captured my imagination is by Rebecca Zanetti, and it's called You Can Run. And it's actually a romantic thriller. It's in West. It's set in Idaho and in the Cascade Mountains. And it's about a woman who comes home to her little town. This time she doesn't know that she has a sister, but she does. She has a half sister. The two girls were raised by different mothers. They never have met. And our heroine goes back to this little town because she is an FBI profiler who specializes in serial killers. And it looks like there may be a serial killer in this little town. Someone was out snowmobiling in the mountains, and a little avalanche happens, and they discover a whole bunch of bodies there. And so our heroine is there to try to find out what's happened, what's been going on. And as the story progresses and she meets this other woman, it's two and two together and realizes that they're actually sisters. She realizes there's something very off about her sister. She herself has always been fascinated by the minds of serial killers and tracking them down, but she's just afraid that her sister may actually be a serial killer. So this premise just grabbed my imagination, and I can't stop thinking about it. There's a lot of snowmobiles in this book, but I don't think there's any horses.
I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, Idaho, we're still sticking in the West. We're still sticking Christmas time with the snow. We'll take it. I think it works. Jodi, how about you?
I think Linda Brode, who writes Westerns and historicals, I love the way she puts, she does she's working on a series about the legends, and that's her last name, the legends, and they're a family that kind of sticks together, and what I love about her writing is she incorporates a story about the grandfather, the father, and the son, and so or the daughter. And so she has the family, you see that family dynamics that's very clear. And I always enjoy reading hers.
Well, yeah, good characters are always something when you read them, you want to study it, right? Which is
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Thank you two so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Again, dearest viewers and readers, make sure you pick up their two amazing books for the Christmas season. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks.